Hey everyone, my name is Dewan Valentine and I'm the creator and senior executive producer of C.SQUARED, Crucial Conversations. This next episode that you're about to watch is one I actually hold really near and dear to my heart. It's an episode where we address issues that directly impact the trans community. It's part of what I hope will become an ongoing series here at C.SQUARED. I actually more affectionately call it All Things Trans. Now listen, I first want to say thank you to all of the guests, the hosts of C.SQUARED, Miguel, Anthony, and Rebecca, as well as Ashley Marie Presley, who served on this episode as a subject matter expert to help guide the conversation. The reason why this show, this episode in particular, is so near and dear to my heart is because I myself experienced a very educational experience, I guess you can say, where I tried to pay a compliment, but instead served to offend my trans brothers and sisters, and received a really quick education on the do's, don'ts, and whatnots from a group of my trans brothers and sisters at the Waldorf Memorial, where I was at the time. And the person who led that charge was Jason Hill, who actually has become one of my best friends and one of my go-to sources whenever I need some advice and some education on the trans community and alike. And I just want to say a special thanks to Jason. Let you know I do love you. You're like a brother from another mother. And thanks to all the guests, once again, who helped to make this episode so impactful. I want you to know I love you from the bottom of my heart. And C.SQUARED Crucial Conversations. Thanks.
This is C.SQUARED, where every conversation is a crucial conversation. With your hosts, Rebecca Mitchell, Miguel Buhanda, and Anthony Walker. Welcome to C.SQUARED.
All right, welcome back to C.SQUARED. I'm your host, Rebecca Mitchell, and today's episode, we're focusing specifically on issues in the trans community. I want to hand it off to Ashley. Say hi, Ashley.
Hi. What makes C.SQUARED such a powerful platform is that we give a voice to people that typically fall through the cracks within the LGBTQIA plus community. And so today's episode is an opportunity for us to come together and build a relationship as a community. And it's important that we all be mindful that allyship is the biggest part of this movement. And so we want everyone to feel like they have a voice and they have space and that they're heard. And more than anything, we just want to make this a very intimate, close experience. So I'm definitely looking forward to this episode, and I thank everyone that's joined us today. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to our host to introduce themselves.
Hello everybody, I'm Miguel.
And I'm Anthony.
Okay, we're going to get right into it with our first question. What we'd like to ask our guests today is, what is the difference between trans man, trans woman, and other non-binary nouns or pronouns of the trans community?
Perfect. Well, hi, my name is Addison. I use they, them pronouns. And for me, my they, them pronouns reflect my gender identity. And so we have to keep in mind that when we're talking about the LGBTQIA plus community, we're talking about 5 different spectrums, that being sex, gender, gender expression, sexual orientation, and romantic orientation. For me, my gender is genderqueer. I'm not encompassed by being a man or woman. I'm somewhere other than that. I'm outside, I'm all of them. I'm in between, I'm fluid, I'm everything.
You're all of it.
I'm all of it,
great.
yes. And so my they, them pronouns are able to encapsulate that for me.
Can you explain the they, them to people that don't understand what you're talking about?
Well, pronouns, just so you know, are the term that you use.
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, it's okay. So pronouns are the term that you use in lieu of your name. So an example would be John goes to school and he studies math. Or Jill goes to school and she studies science, you know, something like that. So she and he would be those pronouns. For me, it's Addison works at a center and they are a lead advocate. Their favorite color is blue and I saw them earlier today rocking it.
So is there somebody else that can answer for us? Now, I hear what you're saying, and I would like to know from maybe somebody else, what is it like if you go by the same standard and then somebody doesn't say it right? How does that make you feel? Like, does it upset you, or do you just politely correct them? Is there anybody else that can take that?
My name is Maya Jaffer, and yes, to address your question, I mean, if people don't understand it, we as trans women are here to educate and bring about awareness, which again this show as well, among many other shows, is for that purpose, to help educate the population, bring about awareness as to what being trans really means. And my pronouns are she and her. I see myself as a trans woman. So yes, and these questions are great, and we actually welcome questions, but in a polite, gentle, respectful way, because we're human as well, just like you are, and we have feelings, and please be respectful. It's common sense to just have and give respect for everyone equally. So there, thank you.
Okay.
So I know there's one thing that I was thinking. If you take a look at everyone in the audience today and the widely diverse panel, we come from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different journeys, and different cultures. And is there anyone here that identifies as Native American?
I was saying it in like a joking way, but kind of serious. I grew up thinking that I was Black and Native American. I'm from Maryland, and a lot of people there have kind of like that background story of their heritage. And I did ancestry DNA. By the way, my name is Isis, and I obviously she, her. And I did the ancestry DNA and found out that I was only like 1% Native American. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of like mixture and diversity and spectrum here. The reason why I asked is because I know that for some cultures, trans identity varies, and there's very specific language. And I think I saw someone raise their hand that they identify as Native American. And so I want to hear what your transness translates to in the Native American culture.
Sure, and if I could, I'd like to introduce myself formally. Yat Ashidina, Michelle Enfield, Geneshet, Kachini, and Schlet, Sinajuni, a Bashishin, Tohana, Ada Chiche.
Oh, wow, that was a lot.
So what I told you were my clans in Navajo. I am Dina from the Navajo Reservation. I've been living in LA since 2004. And there is traditionally and historically a view of transgender non-binary individuals that isn't what we see today. It's not, we don't see them, or see us, I should say, as people who are unworthy, as lesser than, but rather people who really contributed to their community and that really have been productive citizens in society.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I find it interesting because, ultimately, because I worked in the community with trans individuals, men and women, and the thing is, I noticed that it's sometimes hard for somebody who's not transgender, who's, in a sense, transitioning with them. I've actually worked with some individuals that they identified with their birth gender and then eventually transitioned, and we had to go through that transition too. And I found it very difficult sometimes to not respect, but to use his appropriate name. And he would get mad at me when I wouldn't call him by his new name. So how do you tell somebody that wants to accept trans individuals but is having a hard time transitioning with the person that's transitioning? Okay, microphone.
Hi, I'm Jason. I use either he, him, or they, them, depending on my mood. So either one, I won't be offended. And to answer your question, I have to be honest. I mean, I feel like it's kind of selfish, and I'm not trying to be mean when I say this, I promise. But I mean, at the end of the day, as a cis person, the hardest thing for you is to switch names or pronouns. But for us, we go through so much more.
Can you explain what... I'm sorry, because we have some viewers and people on the panel who aren't familiar with the terminology cis. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. So cis basically means your gender identity matches what you were told you were born as, or matches your anatomy. If you're... Yeah, so as a cis person, the hardest thing is just kind of to be like, oh God, I have to remember, Jason goes by he and him pronouns now, or goes by Jason. But it's like, your whole world doesn't really turn upside down, okay? You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about, being respected by everyone you encounter, potentially losing jobs, potentially dealing with more employment discrimination, housing discrimination, just homelessness. There's just, so much worse. And then there's, the emotional things and hormones Actually, for those of us who choose to medically transition, that messes with your head and it messes with your emotions. So there's just I would encourage people to keep in mind that even though it may be challenging to remember a pronoun, what we are going through is so much more challenging. So like you can remember a pronoun.
Because I'm Miguel, and I've learned about the whole preferred gender pronoun, and I'm very comfortable being preferred as a he/him, I believe. But I'm with my friends, they sometimes say stuff like, "Hey, girl," but it doesn't bother me. But to some gay men, it does bother them. Is that equivalent to what trans individuals go to when it comes to the pronoun, or is it completely different?
Hi, my name is Sibylle Rica, and I think it's a generational thing to some degree, because a lot of the things that trans woman, and I go by her, she, and I'm also 50 years old, or will be 50 years old in about 6 months. So when I look at it from that perspective, I look at when I transitioned, it was okay to be called tranny, or to be called, for us to say certain things that that communities today considers derogatory. To call someone a tranny in our community today is like almost taking a bat and beating them over the head, or saying, or calling them he, she, or anything out of that nature. During my phase of transitioning, that was something we as a group accepted. Today's group don't often accept those things. So it's really much more of a generational thing. And as we evolve, things change on.
All right, well, thank you so much for that. We'll be right back. We're gonna go to our Boots on the Ground segment, and we'll see you in a few.
All right, welcome to C.SQUARED Boots on the Ground. I'm your host, Brandon Burciaga. Today I have the beautiful Anna here. How are you doing today, Anna?
Very good, very well.
Great, so today I have a couple crucial conversations that we need to have. What's your take on the whole immigration, building a wall, and all that stuff?
This is a country of immigrants. That's a ridiculous thing. You're creating hate. You're creating more anger and more violence. Like, you will have so many more issues if you make people afraid and make people scared and threaten their livelihood.
Right.
That's how you end up with bad people.
Absolutely. I mean, look where we're standing. Look around.
Yeah.
There's so many diverse people here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they all have something to offer. Every person does, Just got to give them potential. You got to give them the opportunity. So.
Definitely.
Everyone has that potential.
So with that said, with all the diverse people we have around here, with the whole LGBTQ population, what's your take on all that?
I'm proud of that community for holding it down, like speaking out and being fearless.
Definitely. Like the whole resilience is as a main factor of LGBT, immigrants, and all that whole stuff. It definitely plays a role in who we are.
Actually, if you go back, so I really think that the Native Americans of this country really are the core of that. We can turn. Now is a time where you can really turn to those people that have been oppressed for their whole fucking lives. Everything that they have been through, is been a struggle, and now you can tap into that, and all these communities should start coming together and making something happen, because we're all oppressed to a certain degree,
All right, welcome back. I'm going to pass our next question off to our co-host, Anthony. Anthony, what do you got for us?
So my question is being that you're transgender and the community is gate-wise, male, female, straight, they look at you and they see, okay, you have titties, you have ass, you have all of that. The first thing that comes to mind is the sex trade, prostitution, what you had to get to go through that. My question is, how is it the life that you're living, and what are the transitions that you had to make in order to be this?
No, it's okay. That question was so many parts because...
Well, let's have each of you answer one section.
No, it's so many parts, and when I say that, I mean, prostitution in itself, so many trans people have to resort to what they have to, especially people of color, because a lot of the families put them out, or they don't have the acceptance. But I feel as far as who we are, that doesn't necessarily have to do with sex trade. I think that's the part that,
I think one of the parts I hear you saying, and I often underscore to friends of mine when we're having conversations, is that transness is not necessarily your physical attributes. If someone decides that they want to have the gender confirmation surgery, and someone decides that they don't, it doesn't make one more of a woman or more of a man, vice versa, because it's really in how you identify and in your expression.
Hi, my name is Sibylle, Rica, and I just think when you talk about prostitution, I think overall people's concept of what that involves with trans folks is kind of wrong in a sense, because I believe not all trans folks prostitute. So, and not all prostitution are surrounded by transitioning, for the simple fact of, if I'm on the streets and I need to eat, whether I'm trans or not, if I'm a human being and I'm on the streets and I need to eat, I'm going to do what I need to do to eat. And that involves in the gay community as well. So you have more gay men, lesbian women, and trans folks that also prostitute. But more so why we prostitute and why anyone probably does it is because they're trying to survive on the street. It's not about having to transition for the most part. That's just one of the concepts of, that's just one of the process that trans women go through.
Do you feel that?
Wait, let's let her answer.
Okay.
Or,
I had to piggyback.
well, she had her arm up.
Oh yeah. I mean, honestly, she pretty much said everything. Hi, I'm Blossom. My pronouns, not to be confused with the Powerpuff Girls, but my pronouns are she, her, her, sometimes honey. Basically, I'm pretty much going to piggyback off of what you said. A lot of that actually is stigma, first of all. It is stigma when it comes to trans women. And we need to understand why trans women have to do sex work when we can't find jobs. People will not hire us. A lot of us have to detransition to find work. Believe it or not. And I work in the public health field. And so that's why a lot of our statistics are in with the MSM community. A lot of it, they like to put us all together when we're not together. Our struggles are very different. And people don't understand why trans women sometimes have to do sex work. It can mean at the end of the night a roof over their head or food in their stomach. So we need to be mindful of the reason why somebody goes through these different struggles. And it's not necessarily about transition, because one thing about transitioning, when you're first transitioning, you're kind of put into this competitive state where you have to allegedly get your boobs done, get your booty done. You have to go out there and work in the field or whatever. And that's not what every trans person does, and they have to do. But we just need to understand the reason why these things happen.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I have a question for my trans brothers. One of the questions I have is because, I'll be honest, I've actually come across and I met a trans man who happens to be gay, and I found him attractive. And my friends kind of gave me some, crap about it. They were like, well, how could you, go out with somebody who's trans? I'm like, but I found him attractive. He's appealing. So I asked, and like everybody on the panel actually, how do you feel about trans individuals that identify as gay in the gay community? And how is it for them? Do you know anybody or yourselves that you like to share?
I mean, my name is Ethan. My pronouns are he and him. I think sexual preference, I don't think it has much to do with who you are. Like as a person, like you could be trans and you can be gay or straight or pansexual or bisexual. I don't think your sexual preference has to do with your gender or how you identify. So if you find him attractive and you identify as a gay man, you like men, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
And for the viewers out there, I think the important point that we want to underscore is that there is a difference between gender identity and sexual orientation. Gender identity is who I go to bed as, and sexual orientation is who I decide to go to bed with.
Yeah. And I mean, luckily amongst my friends, I've given them that knowledge and said, hey, that person is a trans man, but happens to be gay. And it's just, there are two separate items, and that's very important to acknowledge.
My next question is that for all of you, dating gay-wise, the LGBTQ community, a lot of transgendered women or trans men like to hang out with straight quote unquote men, straight women. How do you identify? Do you hang with the gay community because when you hang out with a gay person, the first thing they're gonna look at is, oh well, this might not be a real woman, or this might not be this. But most of transgender sometimes will hang with a real woman to be noticed as, this is what I am, this is what I want to be. Well,
what is a real woman?
Okay, so let me define it. Let me define it. Now you get me together, but let me define it. Well, meaning birth as. Okay, so however you feel and however you feel that you are what you were birthed as from birth. That's what I'm saying, like with the parts. No offense, no nothing like that. But like I said, would you rather hang out with gay individuals or with the straight individuals to blend in?
Christian?
Okay.
Can I? Well, we haven't heard from. Have we heard from you yet, Anya?
Go first.
No. Okay.
Okay. I'll just say this. My name is Paris, and for me personally, I don't like look at a person or judge a person like based on their sexual orientation or their gender identity and decide, well, this is someone that I'm going to hang out with, or this is someone that I'm not going to hang out with. I don't really, for me personally, I don't focus on if someone is LGBT for me to be friends with them because I want to blend in.
Right.
I feel like if someone is to notice that I was trans and I don't like that, then for me, I'm going to look at what that is and work on my own transition for me personally. And also, I forgot the other half of your question now. I just forgot it, but I was going to comment on it.
Hi, my name's Christian, and I am one of the people who does not care about pronouns. You can call me he or she or they or nothing or you. It doesn't trigger me. I understand that other people, it's very, very important and core to their identity, but my gender is very fluid, so to me it's not a personal issue. But to get to your question, I have friends in all walks of life. I have very straight, very conservative people that are in my life, and I have the queerest of the queer unicorns. And the fact of the matter is transness and queerness is just one aspect of identity. Like I am gender fluid, but I am also an artist. I also like Magic the Gathering. Like I like weird. It's just one more aspect of your life. So, you might have a desire to hang out with people like you in certain contexts. So you might want to hang out with trans friends and have trans nights, but other times it doesn't matter.
Okay. I also want to, so we're going to, in a second, take a moment, but one thing I do want to just say right now, I think we're being a little too politically correct.
Yes.
I'm sitting here and I am seeing us take on these roles that we traditionally, as trans and non-binary people, take on, in which we feel like we have to teach and we have to educate. And while education is important, it's more important to have a conversation and a genuine and authentic connection with those around us. And so when we come back, we are actually going to break open the floor and have that discussion, ask those questions, and really come from the textbook and really tap into the hearts of one another. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, and welcome to C.SQUARED Pop Culture Moments with me, your host, Thomas Erlina. 2017 has been a busy year for our favorite celebrities, but there are 3 pop divas in particular that I'm here for. Now let's get started with this first artist who's got 18 #1 hit singles, Mariah Carey. Mariah rang in the new year with what was supposed to be a huge moment for the chart-topping diva, but she ended up receiving backlash and was accused of lip-singing when a series of issues started to unravel. Now in Mimi's defense, her earpiece was not working and the mother of 2 looked fabulous and completed the performance despite the major mishap. On February 1st, Queen Bee shook the world by posting a maternity photo of herself on her Instagram account, announcing that she and rapper husband Jay-Z are expecting twins. With parenting and family being a top priority for her, at least for now we have her iconic Lemonade album to keep us at bay. You can bet there will be more announcements from her pregnancy along the way. Congratulations to the Carter family. Now, if you're not the biggest fan of football, one thing's for sure, you probably watched the Super Bowl halftime show featuring Mother Monster, Lady Gaga. She nailed her 13-minute jaw-dropping performance, even jumping off the stadium rooftop after singing against a backdrop of 300 drones in the sky. The songwriter and Golden Globe winner belted out her greatest hits and can now boast the most watched Super Bowl halftime show of all time. She's also set to star in her first motion picture, A Star is Born, hitting theaters in 2018 alongside actor Bradley Cooper. That's all for this edition of C-Squared Pop Culture Moments with me, your host, Thomas Erlina. For more of me and what I do, please follow me at Thomas Erlina on my Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. Now let's get back to your crucial conversation.
Thanks for staying tuned. I want to touch back on what Ashley was saying about how important it is for our community to have a two-way conversation. So I'm going to turn the questions over to our panel, see if we have any questions for everyone.
Hi, my name is Billy Lee, and I go by she and her. A thing with me is like even sitting here right now, sometimes like one of the hosts would say something or ask something, and I immediately want to like, I can see us all kind of tense up because of ignorance in a way, and I get where cis people come from, where they want to just ask a question because they really are interested. But then on the other side, some of us trans women, maybe we're feeling insecure that day, maybe we're not, you know, we don't know exactly where we are in our transition, but we may be coming from an insecure place, and we immediately feel offended. I'm like, hold on, what did he just say? So my thing is like, I really try practicing like patience, because I am here, and I think we all are here to educate the cis community and everyone. So I notice myself and my sisters and my brothers that sometimes I'm just like, hold on, like I really do get frustrated. But again, like I want to hold the space for cis people to be able to bring their ignorance to the table and ask a question and learn something so we can educate them. And I
guess it sounds like your question would be, how do you all feel? I'm going to put myself outside of this and on the side with them. How do you all feel as cisgender individuals asking questions to trans or non-conforming people?
I mean, for me, it's kind of hard to ask a question because I don't know what to say or what to call or how to, if I'm offend you or not or all of that. So sometimes transgendered individuals can get catty and get attitudes and come from spaces. I'm just saying because of the ignorance. I'm an ignorant person because I don't know, and I'm gonna tell you straight up, I don't know certain things, and I'm a realist. I'm not gonna sit up here and act like I'm this person or trying to be like that. If I don't know something and it sounds ignorant, understand my ignorance is gonna come out because I don't know. So,
and that's why it's wonderful that everybody practices their patience, and I think, you know, asking questions in a try to be polite, respectful way is always the best way to kind of enter into a conversation. And I think it's everybody's job to practice patience, like you were saying.
Yeah, which is true.
You know, like, my thing is like, do your research. If you're interested, or if you have questions, or if you're having a show and you're having all these trans women on, it's like, I'm gonna do my research. I'm gonna find out what's going on in the community so I can ask the appropriate questions.
Yeah, and you know, ultimately, I want to thank you all because, and I thank everybody in the trans community, because the reality is, you shouldn't have to educate anybody. You should be able to just live, and that's what it upsets me when I have to educate a lot of especially my gay friends about the trans community, because they say some very ignorant things, and any single time I try, I'm an ally and I try, but sometimes they come over like, so no, she. They just don't get it, and I guess it gets me really upset is that, you know, at least the gay community, I know we're very ignorant. I know we should. You know, I'm sorry. You know, I'm so sorry about that.
We're the most judgmental individuals within our own society.
You touched on a very valid point too. I think one opportunity that many of us miss out on is to really look at ourselves and address the misogyny and transphobia and homophobia within our own community. So So what makes the trans experience all the more difficult than other narratives is that we don't just have to deal with being trans. Some of us have to deal with racism on top of being trans.
Yeah.
So my white trans brothers and sisters and others are not going to have some of the same barriers and challenges because my experiences are going to be disproportionate. So Caitlyn Jenner can get up there and have, you know, her experience. And that doesn't mean her voice should be any less or that her experience isn't valid. It just means that we need to take a look at how we differ and celebrate that diversity and actually talk it out.
True. I just feel that no matter what, we all have our differences within the community, whether you're transgender, whether you're gay, whether you're straight, all of that. We, as a community, need to stop focusing on our own wrongs, our own insecurities. Well, they said it like this, I don't like it like that. Listen to the message. Don't listen to the tone of the voice. You know, certain things people don't know how to talk because they don't understand. And what they don't understand, they're willing to understand. I know you said about the research. Understand that a lot of people don't know how to research that. You know.
Excuse me. I just want to say, hold on. I think that's a little crazy. It's going a little too far. And as a black trans woman in the African American community, I think the black gay community, for coming from a trans experience, has a lot to do with the troubles of why a lot of trans black women have some of the issues they face within our own community, some of the transphobia we face within our own community. Because, in an example, if you go to Red Lobster, you walk into the restaurant as a trans woman, and you have your gay alliance, your brother that's in the background, and they come out and they make the comment of, "Oh, that's a tranny." Of course, that's going to have that trans woman have issues with gay people from that point on. And those are some of the issues that the trans women in our community face from our own brothers and sisters, our own gay, lesbian brothers and sisters when we go out into public. So if we can't get this type of support from our own LGBT community, then why do we think we can support them?
My
name's Kayla. I go by she and her. I just wanted to add to that and the fact that it's great to have these open conversations and these discussions. A lot of times it comes down to how those questions are asked. Because we don't mind answering the questions. I mean, but overall, there's too many boxes, there's too many labels. You know, what's in your pants? Are you a man? Are you a woman? Who do you sleep with? All those are technically inappropriate. I mean, if you want to know who I am and you want to sit down and have a discussion, let's have a discussion. I'll answer every single one of those questions. I'm extremely open about it. But the way they're asked and to hear people say real girl, real boy.
Okay, so for everybody, can you tell us and everybody out there, what do you suppose is the best way for someone to ask?
Well, I'm going to say real quick, my name's Sibylle, and I just want to say, I'm heated. I have, one of my issues is like, so if I'm in the gay community, I'm not a drag queen. I'm a trans woman, first off. So I have a real issue when the gentleman said that a lot of gay men have a hard time saying she to a trans woman when you can say she to a drag queen and let it be okay. So when you say it when you put it like that, it really confused me because there is no, if you can say she to a drag queen, then there is no ignorance. There's just stupidity and disrespect.
I respect that.
That's the way I look at it.
Thank you for saying that. That makes a lot of sense, and believe me, I'll be telling them.
So, I just want to say that from just listening to just that, I see a lot of cis privilege talking. There's a lot of cis privilege. And you have to understand something. I'm not sure if you're a gay man, I don't know what you identify as, but I always have this conversation all the time, especially in the health community, that a gay man is so much more privileged than a trans woman is. So much more privileged. And when you say that we're catty, do you understand the reason why we're allegedly this catty? Because we don't get the respect that we deserve. It's one thing if you don't know something. It's another thing if you just pretty much disrespect us without wanting to know.
Oh, yeah,
and that's the issue. And that's the issue why we're so defensive. That's why it's hard. If you're not trans, if you don't understand the trans experience, that's why it's so hard to just get within our hearts, just get to know us, because we're so defensive, because this is what we deal with on a constant daily basis. And let me say this, and I'm not trying to call anybody out in particular, but you. I heard something backstage about why are people always so defensive. Let me tell you something. When you walk into our shoes, when you understand that trans women of color are being murdered at an alarming rate, then you understand the reason why why we take defense to some of these things. And I'm not, And I'm not trying to blast. I'm not trying to blast you.
Offensive. People are offended rather than defense. And
And I'm not trying to blast you, because this is the thing. Instead of us beating each other up, this needs to be a teaching moment where I can educate you and you can educate me, and we can break even together. But so I just want to make that very clear. I don't mean to call you out like that, but it's important that we have these conversations. So,
well, what I want to say is, before we wrap up, is that by no means are we trying to be offensive to our own community, but we are trying to get the real situation out. So how I speak, how she speaks, how he speaks, it's gonna be how other people are gonna view you, and it has nothing to do against you. It's just all about education purposes.
And speaking of education, we are going to take a quick break. I know you all are wanting to keep going, but we do have to take a break. When we come back, we are going to talk about how to become an ally. What does it take to be supportive of the trans community? Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us again. So today we are having a heart-to-heart with the entire community, LGBTQIA+, and we had some truths that were shared, and some of those truths are uncomfortable, but we are all willing to work together and learn from one another, and I think that that is what makes this space so powerful. So we're going to now go to an audience member who had a question or had a statement, and we want to take the opportunity to hear them. So.
Yes, I'm Jason. So here's why I'm disgusted. The entitlement coming from you as you ask questions is completely inappropriate. That's literally like somebody coming up to you and just asking you stuff, like, I don't know, like, hey, so how big is your dick? You know? Like that, right, okay, you rolled your eyes, that's how we all feel, that's what we all want to do.
Listen,
okay?
let me tell you, hold up.
First of all, we just told you what cisgender means, and you're still saying, oh, real man, real woman.
Let me tell you, you can get offensive. Look, I ain't trying to offend anybody. I'm not trying to offend anybody or be a dick. I may be uneducated about the situation.
Okay, so we are going to pause, because let's get this clear. We cannot ask the world to respect us if we cannot sit in the same space and respect one another. We are going to get it wrong. We are going to make mistakes. We have valid points. When people express something that makes them feel a certain way, it is not intended to offend you. You have to realize that trans and non-binary people and people of color are constantly under attack in every space.
But it's vice versa.
It is, which is why I'm also going to say that there are people out here that are banking for us to attack. They're hoping that we go off the hinge. They're hoping that we cuss them out and go in, and it doesn't mean that our argument is invalid. They want that because they're going to feel more justified in the hate and the bigotry and in the violence that they inflict upon us, and we do not need to give them that.
Yes,
you're right.
Thank you.
You're right about that.
I wanted to say something
do your
about
research. Like Billy said, you should have known this is 2017 and this is a show about trans people, so there is no reason for you to be using that term. Period. The end.
You know what though?
I want to say this. I think we were talking about when it comes to asking questions, and I feel like the correct way to ask questions is to come from a place where you are not trying to undermine or disrespect a person that you're asking the question to, and it's all about where you're coming from when you're asking the question. And then it's also our duty as a community, as the LGBTQIA+ community, to be able to assess where the question is coming from and what the person's motivation is, and really try to differentiate if the person is asking us a question to be disrespectful, or if they're just coming from a place of ignorance and we need to educate.
I agree. I wasn't coming from a disrespectful way at all.
Okay. And to your point, I also want to say that often, and I've been guilty of this, sometimes I am quick to say, like, don't do this, don't try it, like, I'll come for you, like, don't. But I think sometimes we often forget to tell people what we need. The best way to be an ally is to ask how you can help. And so I want to turn the question back over to the panel and ask, what is it that a person who is outside of the community can do to make you feel safe, to make you feel heard, to make you feel that you have space?
Yeah. Addison, they, them pronouns. I think in my head, there's like 5 steps to be an aspiring ally, because you have to keep in mind, one, that ally is not a noun, it's a verb. It's something that you constantly do. It's something that you're always doing, you're always learning, you're always engaging, okay? So the 5 steps, in my head at least, are 1, to listen. So you don't even ask questions, don't even like interrupt, don't even speak over, just listen. So that includes watching documentaries, which all exist about trans identities. There's so many books out there, there's so many things to do in order just to listen to our voices and to hear from us. Next up is to learn and unlearn. So we're all taught these horrible things about trans people, about gender nonconformity, about expressing yourself in different ways. And so it's our duty to unlearn those things and understand why we uphold cis-normativity, why it's okay and celebrated to be cisgender, or to be straight, right, or to be white. We need to understand why that's wrong, right? Next step 2 is to also educate ourselves and educate those around us. So taking the time to engage and discuss with people about trans ideas and trans identities and trans voices. Like if you don't know who Marsha P. Johnson is, or Sylvia Rivera, or Miss Major Griffin Gracie, then you need to like open a book or go on the internet, because those 3 women are incredible and they are Stonewall revolutionaries. They are like our mothers, okay? And then the next step after that too is just to keep engaging, so having those dialogues, and then lastly, just I guess keep learning. It's just, that's all it's all about, and going through those steps again and getting involved. So going to marches, going to meetings where we're talking, we're discussing, because our community is facing so many different issues, as Jason was saying. We're facing homelessness, we're facing job insecurity, we're facing bathroom bills, which is just one small part in our struggles. Like bathrooms are so minuscule, and they're also a distraction from the greater issue of transphobia. So there's so many things going on. So you need to think beyond what's in our pants and what's in our minds, okay? That's instead.
Okay, well said, well said.
Well said.
I would just say to you, like, as far as being an ally, I mean, obviously you want to learn more. I would just say that it's all about your approach. Like you talking to us today, like, I would say even go back and watch yourself, watch how you are, because you're giving off, in a way, kind of really aggressive energy, like your hands, your neck, your shoulder, like it's really aggressive. So you can ask questions that you generally want to know, but if your approach and if you're giving that energy, of course, the girls on this panel who are used to having to defend themselves, and guys who are used to having to defend themselves, of course, we're going to be like that. So I think that you should like watch your interview approach, because I think that watching this, you're going to see, oh, okay, now I see why they came off like that. It doesn't even have to be about what you say. It's how you say it and like the mannerisms that you give.
I've always found it.
And you lucky you cute.
I
can't say mad at you.
Thank you all so much for joining us for today's discussion. And I also want to take a second to thank our host, because what you just did today is brave and courageous, because in the real world, people are having these conversations without us, and they're coming to their own conclusions, and they're making their own assumptions. And so the fact that you all are willing to have this conversation, and you're open and you're honest, we appreciate that, because the only way that we can heal is through honesty and authenticity.
Thank you for staying tuned. I wanted to go right into a question for Jason. Now, this question is based upon, I have a good friend of mine that has pronoun as he, and I've known him for a while. I'm actually in a support group with him. And I consistently have a difficult time remembering the proper pronoun, and it's out of absolutely no disrespect whatsoever. And every time I mess it up, I feel stung. I feel bad. And then I have to sit with that feeling bad about making them feel bad. And I understand that then it makes both people feel bad. And so I want to know, like, you know, it's hard sometimes we come from a lot of us come from a place of respect. Yes, there are people who are just out there messing it up to be coming from a place of anger or whatever. But for me, I have had times where I mess up the pronoun, and especially a lot of he and she, there's also they and I. So with all these different pronouns, it can get confusing or hard for some to remember. So I just want to put that out there that some of us are really trying and we want to come from a place of love and respect. But give us some time, okay? Give everybody time. Everybody needs time to learn and to get used to new things and to be coming from a place of respect and love.
I already answered this. This was the first question I answered.
Wait, I
with
just.
him, so.
What about? Have you written it down? Like, I'm big on gratitude and I ams, and I'm also a stoner, and I forget things. And when it's important to me, and if something's important to my loved one or my friends or my relationships, I write that shit down.
Well,
I write it down over and over and
now
over.
I have stuff to write about in my gratitude journal tonight.
I just, one thing I want to say is it's very interesting. As a gay Latino, first generation born here in the United States, I find it very interesting that we still are in this day and age where we don't realize that as people of color, sexual minorities, that we all could empathize on what happens to every one of us here. We may have different journeys and maybe going through different things, and you're right. My best friend, we talk all the time, and he is black, I'm Latino, and he tells me about the racism he goes through, and I am a privileged, light-skinned, tall Mexican that doesn't necessarily get the same racism as my younger brother who's dark and looks like a little Mexican. So my thing is, we should acknowledge that we all have our challenges, and we all can empathize with everyone in here. We may not know how they feel, because that's not fair. We cannot know how you feel.
That's different for every single human person, too.
And I'm not taking up for anybody, but what she was basically saying, I can understand. It's just like your personal home. When you do a transition, your family has to get used to something. They don't mean no harm by it, but what they're just trying to do is get used to it. So allow some people that may not understand the situation to get used to the situation and correct them. Don't have to pop off or be defensive thinking that they're under attack, because if you're not going to attack your family like that and you understand that it's a transition for them, then it should be the same way for others.
But hold on, baby. Hold on just one moment. Now, I hear your comment and I understand your comment to some degree. But when I walk into a room and I meet you for the very first time and you tell me your name is Daniel, then that's what I'm to call you whenever I meet you, right?
Yes.
So I have a problem when the young lady said her friend of how many thousands of years.
It's been a few months.
A few months, have an issue with that, because had I walked into a room, had me and you been friends, and we walked into a room and I introduced myself to you as Sibylle, the only other thing you should know to call me when I walk into that room or every time we see each other is either Sibylle or girlfriend.
Okay, so can we all remember her name and call her by her name?
Her name is Michelle. Her name is, I forgot it when it walked in the door.
I was just joking about her proper
you're
name.
You're talking about.
I know. I should reiterate and say that this is not actually somebody I've hung out with outside of seeing this person in a support group once a week.
But the other thing is make it even simpler. She go by Blossom. Her name could be Judy, but because she chooses to go by Blossom, that's her nickname. So I look at it from that perspective. If I choose to be her, then I choose to be her, and that should be easy, because if you can remember Blossom, my name is Miss Lady Mocha, AKA, that's who I go by, and most of my friends know me as that. But when I'm at work and I sit at a desk and I work for the city, I'm Sibylle Simone Rica. So nobody has an issue in confusing the two. So when you look at it from that perspective, I have a real hard time understanding how can you confuse her and him.
You can easily turn around and say, can you understand if somebody has a neurological memory problem? Because I've actually talked a lot to my doctor about something seriously wrong with my memory factor. I so we're gonna 10 times and I don't remember their name.
It's okay. Hey, sorry, we have to go. We are on production time. I'm gonna take this out. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've had some amazing conversations, and as we can see, there's definitely a beginning point, but there's going to be some continued work on both sides, and we have work to do as a community, and there's work on you all's end, but we want to talk about what resources we can tap into so that we can continue to do that work. So does anybody have any resource they want to share?
Off the bat, just going back to the earlier point about what you can do to help our community is Google Gavin Grimm and his upcoming Supreme Court case. Laverne Cox has done a lot to raise awareness on Gavin Grimm's bathroom-centric case, and it speaks to a larger problem within our community of acceptance. So off the bat, that's what you can do, and I would just say vote. Vote for people who are going to protect the interests of all Americans, not just a select few.
I also have a resource, and I failed to mention this earlier when I'm talking about Native American perspectives, and that we do have a label Two-Spirit, which really encompasses, well, it's an individual who encompasses both masculinity and femininity equally, which is really everybody. But when we're talking about this term specifically, you have to identify as Native American. And so if you go to redcircleproject.org, there is information there about Two-Spirit identity and etymology.
Interesting, thank you.
Also, you can be sure to check out www.glad.org. That is GLAAD, and you will find frequently asked questions that may speak to any questions that you may have out there. So,
and I would like to thank y'all young ladies for coming here and the things that I've learned today, and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
And the things that I've learned today. My apologies once again. It was majority women here, and I apologize. But just the things that I've learned today from you, it's all about tact and how you say things, because I'm guilty of it. I don't know a person's story, just like a person doesn't know my backstory. So my apologies if I was disrespectful in any type of way, and I don't want the community or the society in general to see this and think that they can disrespect you in that same way, because you all are human just as well as us.
One thing I learned, I need to stop thinking ignorance applies to everybody. I really do think some people are really stupid now. Like, it's just, you don't get it. And it has nothing to do with anybody here, but I'm talking about my friends and my social circles of people that I hang out with that don't respect when they know, and they should know. People, and I just want to definitely say that there's a difference between stupidity and ignorance, and I think, unfortunately, some people fall for the latter, so sorry.
Well, it's also like breakdown, because being stupid means being mentally ill.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We actually have one comment that hasn't changed.
My name is Juliana, and I just wanted to say we are a community, and we all transition differently. So I think the most important thing is to also remember we are individuals, and we have individual stories, individual backgrounds, and we go about our transition differently than each other. So I think what you can do is just get to know us as individuals. So if any of us come into your life, even if you've done your research, even if you've watched a video like this, we have our own story. And just like you do, and just like we listen to yours, you should listen to ours.
C.SQUARED is committed to hearing all stories, all narratives from all walks of life. So again, out there, thank you so much for joining us for this special edition.
And once again, I just want to really thank all of our wonderful guests for being here today and for helping educate us and everyone else watching. Thank you.
Get.